May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Gook Audio podcast. I'm DC Poobah of Gook Audio and Gook Archives, preserving the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths crossed his, and anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So, today, we are honored to have Brad Warner as our guest. Brad has quite a presence on the internet. He does. I think he does 6 podcasts a week, like I do. But his are like he says like 10 to 20 minutes. Little talks on Zen, and yeah, he's really good. He's really straightforward, down to earth guy who first. His first book caught a lot of people's attention, Hard Core Zen, and so he calls his trip Hard Core Zen. If you go to YouTube, Hard Core Zen, and he tells us some other stuff there as the minutes roll by. I'm especially grateful to Brad to speaking to me again this week, because unfortunately, the first time we did a talk for a podcast, it didn't record his track, his side. I was horrified. There was something wrong, in the settings of my computer had gone wrong. I had no idea. And I used this program Call Note to record. And I did a podcast with Tano Maida, and one of the tracks just had 0 kilobytes. And that was my track. I went, gee, what the heck? But I knew right away I could save it. I could just, throw myself back in there and re-ask the questions. And so I did that, I don't think I necessarily revealed that either. I don't think you can tell by listening, because it was a bit of an acting job, right? But then, right away at the same time, I opened up Tano's and I saw that. Then I opened up Brad's, and I see once again there's a track missing, except this time it's his. Oh man, was that a disturbing day? But I got hold of my tech guy, Untitled, who I did a podcast with long ago, like a year and a half ago. And he fixed it. God, so much fun to watch him, man, because Untitled, he's into all this stuff all these folders and everything, and he moves so fast from one thing to another, opening and closing things, trying things out, and he really understands the machinery in there, the software machinery behind what's happening. He doesn't know the software very well. I've asked him questions about software, and he goes, no, I don't know. But he sure knows how to finagle with it. And he can do a certain amount of hardware stuff, but mainly hardware stuff he'll ship out. So sometimes I take hardware stuff downtown to guys who, have these shops that are just with the computer parts and everything just lined all around them, and wires and everything. And, sometimes they can fix something right away there, or they can do it quicker. I don't like one of my aces to be in the shop because that's hard to communicate with them. Although I found an ASUS center here that works on them where I can actually go there and talk to somebody and have her phone number and get back. So that's the only one I'll go to from now on. All right, but that's enough of that. Anyway, so Brad's had to be redone. And I was horrified to tell him that. I lose a podcast maybe once a year or something like that, and I've lost interviews, a handful in over 29 years. There's a certain amount gets lost. There's like I've interviewed people and taken notes, and I go, where are those notes? What happened to that? Things like that. It was just, over the years, and I'm pretty scattered, so we're lucky there's as much saved as it is. A lot of that you can thank kind people like Peter Ford, who helped me keep things better organized. So anyway, so Brad was very cheerful about it. Oh, you know what he did? He suggested I just put the questions for him in front of the answers for Tano. So anyway, okay. So thanks a lot, Brad. One other thing I didn't mention to him is that I had COVID when I talked to him. It wasn't terrible, it was like having a flu. But it was, I'm still, this is the 10th day. I feel pretty good today, but I didn't feel like going out and walking or anything. I'm still a little down, but, it's that Omicron. And Katrinka has it too. She started a few days later than me. Wonder where she got it, huh? I do not know where I got it because we don't have a lot. Well, she had more contact than I do. I don't have a lot of contact with people. And the people I've been really close with in a little tiny room recording, none of them, and our housekeeper, not her. And she and I talk a lot. And it was hard to say because everywhere outside here I wear a mask. But you can get it if you're wearing a mask. So we don't know where. But as we know, Omicron's very contagious. And I've sort of enjoyed it. It's been like a vacation in a way, but it's a little tiring. Sleeping that much, though, it's nice sometimes. Being able to take naps like that. I've had 2 naps today. But I woke up at 4 a.m. and started working. Then that was 5 hours sleep. Well, we'll see. Okay, so hey, let's just, as soon as we've had our pause to meditate, let's give Brad a call. So when you hear the bell, if you're of such a mind, hit pause and meditate or whatever for as long as you wish. And when you're ready to come back, hit unpause. And we'll be here to hit the bell to end the meditation or whatever and to give Brad Warner a call.
Hello.
Hello, Brad. How you doing?
Hi. The phone it was set on vibrate, and I didn't feel it vibrating until it had been vibrating for a while, I guess. By the time I picked it up, you were gone. So.
Oh, well, I figured something like that. But it gave me a moment to take a shower and brush my teeth.
Oh.
Aha.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm put on not headphones.
Yeah, I've got headphones on.
That I might hear you better. It's going to freak my dog out.
Yeah. So, what's happening with you there now in Los Angeles?
What's happening in Los Angeles?
Yeah.
Yeah. Same old. Am I being interviewed now, or are we just talking?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm talking for public consumption, because then I might say something I shouldn't say.
Oh.
No, I don't know.
Yeah. That.
Not really. I don't really have any secrets. Or just, But yeah, what am I doing? I just doing what I do. I have my what do I call it? YouTube channel that I do 5 times a week now, and I have a new book that's coming out.
One can find that YouTube channel by just writing Brad Warner.
Usually, yeah, that'll work. It is officially youtube.com/Hard Core Zen. So if you put that in, you get everything. So youtube.com/Hard Core Zen will get you to the whole shebang. I don't even know all what's on there anymore because I just keep putting videos up, and often people will reference videos to me that I did 2 years ago, and I'm like, oh, I did a video about that? I have to go back and look again.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Yeah, all right, of course, Hard Core Zen.
Yeah.
And how often do you do them?
Well, I do a new video 3 times a week. I try to. Actually, I've been pretty consistent for about a year, so I haven't failed. But I was, try to hedge my bets. So I do a new one 3 times a week, and I do an oldie 2 times a week. So I have a bunch of videos that were shot of talks I gave. A lot of them in 2009 because I happened to carry a camera with me on tour that year. But then there's a few from other years that other people have shot. And, so I put bits of those up every Monday and Friday as oldies. Just keeps me from having to. But I'm going to run out of those soon, so I don't know where I'm going to go once I run out of those oldies to put up.
Well, but you're putting up new ones.
Yeah, and even the oldies are things people haven't seen before because they've just been in a box in my apartment for since 2009, however many years that was.
Yeah, I would think since you've been doing this so long. I mean, how long have you been putting them up on YouTube?
The YouTube videos I started doing regularly in 2017, but I started doing them intermittently. God, I think in like 2006 or something. It's been a long time. Whenever you could first start putting YouTube videos up, I think I was right in there. But I was intermittent. I wasn't doing it as a regular thing. I would just put them up every once in a while. Whenever I felt like it, I'd stick something up there. It wasn't a steady thing until 2017.
Well, then I would think you would have enough. You could always go back to what you think of as the new ones to the oldest one and be including them. I mean,
yeah, I could do that.
You'll always have old ones if you keep this out.
Yeah. If I don't insist on the old ones also being new in some capacity, if they're truly reruns, I could do that.
Wow.
But yeah, they do that, and I have a new book coming out in May. They just gave me an actual date, which I've forgotten. It was like May 10th or something like that. That a new book will be coming out.
And the name of your new book is
The Other Side of Nothing. It's a reference to a line from Kobun Chino Roshi made in a talk that I've actually referenced in other books. So anybody who's read my stuff steadily might go, "Oh, that's that thing he put in 2 other books before this." I think I put it in 2 other books before this one. The same quotation from Kodo Sawaki, what did I say? Kobun Chino, which has the line "The Other Side of Nothing" in it.
Yeah, it's a good. It's like a song title too.
Yeah,
Well,
my friend pointed out that it reminded him of the Chris Christopherson song "The Other Side of Nowhere," just the other side of nowhere.
There you go.
Which is it's a very dated reference, but my dad was real into Chris Christopherson, and when Chris Christopherson was big, so.
Well, yeah.
I got an earful of Chris Christopherson as a child.
Really? And that's interesting. You're a youngster. What year were you born?
1964, so I'm not that much of a youngster,
Did you say
I know what you mean.
64?
64, yeah.
Yeah, that's 19 years after me.
Oh, okay. Well, it means I'm going to be 58 this year, so it's, I don't know. I don't feel I have any claim to being young at 58.
Huh. Wow. So, what number book is this?
I think it is number 9, because I remember making a joke to somebody that I should be like Quentin Tarantino. He always said he was going to do 10 films and then leave the business. And I think this new Tarantino film, the one that just came out a couple of years ago, is the 10th film. It's either the 10th or the 9th, and people are speculating, like, is he really going to quit? Anyway, so I was thinking, oh, maybe I should do the same thing, but I don't know. I kind of feel like I'll just keep writing.
Now, your first book was Hard Core Zen.
Yeah, the first published book. It kind of feels weird to me because I wrote books before that. I just couldn't get them published.
And what were they?
So, novels. I had this idea of writing Zen-influenced science fiction novels, sort of in the mold of Philip K. Dick. Only Philip K. Dick actually didn't study Zen beyond reading D.T. Suzuki. I would be coming at it from the standpoint of actually having practiced.
Yeah.
And maybe, sneak the Zen idea in to the narrative. That's what I wanted to do.
And it didn't. Well, you didn't get a publisher. Yeah.
No, I got close. One of the novels, I got, I can't remember which publisher, but I sent it in, and the woman who read it liked it and she wanted some changes before she would show it to her people, the rest of her, committee. Mm-hmm. So I did. I rewrote it according to the changes that she wanted and resubmitted it, and then she sent it to her committee, and they didn't like it. So but I thought, well, I got pretty close on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. What was it? Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance was turned down by just everybody constantly. A large number of publishers. So finally, he found something. And that's an old
that's
story.
What you got to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me the other names of your books. I love them. Every book has a great name.
There's Sit Down and Shut Up, Zen Wrapped in Karma, Dipped in Chocolate. That's the one people like. It comes from a commercial. Let's see, Sex, Sin, and Zen. There is no God, and He is always with you. Don't Be a Jerk. It Came from Beyond Zen, and Letters to a Dead Friend About Zen. I think I've named them all at this point, although I didn't count on my fingers, so I might have missed one.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good. They're great. Great names, great books. Wow, and you just keep them coming. That's amazing.
Just keep cranking them out.
I want to get you. Where did all this start? I want to get your story. Where did all this start? I mean, what was your first inkling of the transcendent, or that there is something more?
Yeah, I don't know. I tried to answer that question for myself in the book, what's it called? Zen Wrapped in Karma, Dipped in Chocolate. And I tried to figure it out, and I hadn't really thought about it. But I grew up partly in Nairobi, Kenya. My parents were born in Ohio, and then we moved to Kenya when I was 7, maybe 6. I'm not sure exactly the age. I was very young, and it got me out of the environment of small town Ohio and into Africa, and just seeing all this, what was there, this whole world suddenly opened up that wouldn't have opened up before. And I remember starting to get real interested in religion at that point, because a lot during the Obama years, everybody thought that Kenya was a Muslim country, and Kenya is not a Muslim country. But there are Muslims in Kenya. But there's far more Christians and Hindus in Kenya than there are Muslims. And I was not. I'm only saying there were Muslims because I assume they were there at the time. They weren't visible. They weren't like a presence in the in the country. But the Hindus were, and I found that stuff very fascinating. And one of my dad's best friends was an Indian guy, and I just remember finding their culture fascinating and their religion fascinating, even though I was a little kid and barely understood what it was about. But I think that planted the seed to wanting to know more about what was going on with that. Mm-hmm. So I was 11 years old when we came back to Ohio, and that sort of got closed. That gate got closed again. So I was no longer had any access to that world except through books. And I was trying to read what I could, but in a rural town in Ohio in the late 70s, try getting some literature about anything Indian. I was sort of interested in Hindu stuff, and there wasn't much about. So I ended up going to Kent State University, and I kept looking for a class on the syllabus about something to do with Hinduism. And I found one called Zen Buddhism. And I was like, well, I knew enough to know that Buddha was Indian, and so that this was related to what I wanted to learn about. And there was nothing else that was even close, so I signed up for the class called Zen Buddhism. And it wasn't even a class for credit. It was Kent State had this department called the Experimental College at the time, and it was for any wild and crazy subjects that they thought were interesting to students but too weird to give academic credit for. So I'd taken a class the previous semester called Intro to Parapsychology. So that's like the kind of thing they had. And the next semester they had a class called Zen Buddhism. And every time I tell this story, I like to point out the fact that Kent State University in 1983, probably, I think this must have been, thought that Zen Buddhism was so freaky, you could not, you wouldn't dare give somebody academic credit for studying Zen Buddhism. That's the mentality that was at work. It was one of the biggest religions in the world, very respected old tradition, older than Christianity, but it's too freaky for us. Anyway, I took that class, and the teacher was a guy named Tim McCarthy, who had been I think the Jisha of Kobun Chino. He was something. He was with Kobun Chino for quite a while.
Oh yeah. And where?
In Taos.
In Taos.
So it was after Kobun had moved out of California. I think he met. I don't know Tim's story that well, but I believe that Tim met Kobun in California, and then he went with Kobun to Taos.
Yeah.
When Kobun left.
Yeah.
So he did most of his work with Kobun in Taos. And he taught that class, and he was just. I was very impressed with him and with the Heart Sutra. Just hearing that and thinking, well, this is what I want to. This is it. I stopped looking really at Hinduism anymore and thought, well, this is the thing. This is what I've been searching for, and that got me into it. And the next thing that happened related to that happened like 10 years later. I got a job in Japan teaching English, and so I went. Because I couldn't get after I graduated. I couldn't. I took a long time to graduate, which is why there's the 10-year gap. But after I graduated, I wasn't able to get a job, and so I worked a lot of menial jobs for a few years after graduation that had nothing to do with my degree or anything. I substitute taught and did a few other things. Worked for the County Board of Mental Retardation, is what they called it. And then I got this job in Japan teaching English, and did that for a year. And then I got another job in Japan working for a film production company called Tsuburaya Productions, who do a show called Ultraman, which is a really, really popular superhero show over there. Like really, really popular. And working for them, that placed me in Tokyo, so that's where I met Gudo Nishijima Roshi, who became my ordaining teacher, and he was the one that talked me into ordaining, which I wasn't exactly against it, but it had never occurred to me as being something I would, it wasn't even something I considered doing until he talked me into it. So I did a priest ordination, and then the next sneaky thing that Nishijima Roshi did was he decided he wanted to retire from. He'd been teaching these English language Zen classes in Tokyo for, I don't know, 20 or 30 years or something. And he decided he wanted to retire from that, and he wanted me to carry on teaching those classes.
Oh, goodness.
Which wasn't really anything and I didn't really want to do that, but, you know, he kind of put it to me as a request of his old, you know, I am very tired and old, you know, and I'm like, well, I can't say no.
Yeah, right.
So I started doing that. That encouraged me to write a book about it. So I wrote a book about it, a book about my Zen life, which after having written other books that couldn't get published, I just assumed after I wrote what became Hard Core Zen that I'd written yet another book that was unpublishable. But I knew the drill by then of how you send a query letter and sample chapters and, you know, the whole thing that you do when you're trying to get a publisher.
Mm-hmm.
I knew how to do that, so I decided I might as well do it with this Zen book. And that I was shocked when Wisdom Publications wanted to publish it. I was literally thought, like, that was really? You want to publish this? I was amazed.
And yeah, because it had these various elements in it that...
it had punk rock and monster movies and, you know, it wasn't like any Zen book I'd ever seen before. I just thought, well, you know, especially Wisdom Publications, you know, they publish very sort of...
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
They do, you know, like Andy Ferguson's China's Zen Heritage.
Oh, yeah. Stuff, really kind of academic stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they're known for. Academic Buddhist studies, very arcane stuff that's, you know, who only nerds read. So, and then they wanted to publish mine, and I'm like, okay, well, we can. Yeah. I almost didn't do it. I remember I had these discussions with Nishijima about, like, should I really do this? And he was like, you should do it. Oh, really? Okay.
When I first arrived in Tokyo, or in Japan too, you know, in '88, I was in Tokyo for a little bit at first, and I called him up, and
cool.
I'd have no idea where I got the number, and he invited me over. He said he could give me a place to stay, and I happened to check out Shinya Shifuku at CNF Communications first, and that was very convenient, and they were all sort of hip and cool. They translated, you know, like "Be Here Now" and "Fritz off Capra" and stuff. And so I didn't go there, and I didn't meet him, and I always I'm sorry I didn't get to it, but you know, I didn't spend much time in Tokyo. But he had a very good reputation.
He was a very sincere guy and serious, but was also very approachable. You know, he did what he did. He was a big fan of Kodo Sawaki. He had, I think, his introduction to Zen had been going to some Sawaki Roshi's retreats. So.
What's his lineage?
Nishima's?
Yeah.
He got Dharma transmission from Rempo Niwa.
Oh, goodness. Well, then it's right in Rempo Niwa was he was a Dharma heir of Kishizawa, who was Shunryu Suzuki's teacher.
Yeah. There's a strong connection.
Oh, yeah.
There. And Niwa was head of Soto Shu for some.
Oh,
yeah.
Point.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think Niwa did
exactly
Suzuki's funeral.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I met his son once, I think, but I never met. I think Niwa Rinpo was already passed away by the time I got over to
Huh.
Japan, and even his son was pretty old. Um, but he was also Niwa, I think. Yeah, I think. Anyway, yeah. So that's how I got into it. That's a story I tell a lot whenever I have to meet it. I don't mind telling it, but I feel like when you tell a story enough, it becomes sort of like. I realized when I was writing Hard Core Zen, and maybe you had this experience when writing, what was it called, Thank You and Okay, that I would remember incident A and remember incident D, but in incident B and C that came between, I couldn't remember. So there were a couple of places in Hard Core Zen where I just made stuff up. Nothing big. I didn't make up any, I didn't invent any major stories of my life, but transitional bits to get from, A to B.
Well, that's
I
fine.
would make up just going, well, something like that must have happened. And so
Yeah.
nowadays I'm like, well, I wonder what really happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't make up anything about anything that was like a significant
Right.
significant part of my life, but the incidental stuff that you have to go, well, I must have moved. I live in this house now, and I lived in another house before, so there must have been a moving day,
Right.
in between there. So I would just write, then I would write about the moving day, but it's like I don't really remember the moving day, that sort of thing.
Well, that's acceptable, totally acceptable in the rule book. Hey, I want to hear a little about this film company you worked for.
Sure.
They were started by, if I recall right, the guy who did the special effects for the Godzilla films.
Yeah, that's right. A guy named Eiji Tsuburaya. He did that. That's his claim to fame. He'd been in film in Japan for many years, but in I think 1954, he'd been doing special effects. He did war films. He even did anti-American propaganda during World War II. He made he did a film that was because they didn't have any actual film of the bombing raid on Pearl Harbor. So what Tsuburaya did on behalf of the Japanese government was made, a fake film of the bombing of Pearl Harbor, as Japanese wartime propaganda with miniatures and all this stuff. And it looked so good that apparently the Allies were showing that, later on to people as if they thought it was real footage too, but it was Tsuburaya's
Good
model
for him.
planes and firecrackers and stuff. But so that landed him the chance to do the Godzilla films when they wanted somebody to do special effects for those, and that became his big claim to fame. And then he started his own special effects company, which they did this TV show called Ultraman, a superhero show with not a cartoon. People always hear the name Ultraman and assume it's a cartoon, but it wasn't. It was a live action show with the miniature sets and all the stuff all the techniques that he'd employed to make the Godzilla films. He put that all in the service of doing this TV show, and it became a tremendous success. And that's the company I ended up working for. And I was a big fan of this stuff, so I coveted the position of working for this company. I was like, I campaigned for the job that I got. I sent them, the letters and.
Oh, really? Wow.
Kissed up to the president of the company. And he hired me.
Now, as I recall, you got occasional stand-in roles, or what do you call it when they need
not exactly extras, I suppose.
Extras, right? That's it.
I think maybe there was a handful of times, maybe 3 or 4 times, where I actually had lines, but most of the time it was just they needed a street scene with some non-Japanese people, and there's you may know this already, but there's agencies in Japan where people who have normal day jobs doing something else will also sign on, and they get on Japanese TV shows and movies all the time whenever they need somebody who doesn't look Japanese. So they would hire some people from there, and then to save a little bit of money, they'd send me out too, so they'd have one more person. But I had a few roles, and I really wish I had bought this at the time. It was expensive, and I didn't. But some company put out this like complete compendium of everything about Ultraman, because the fans of Ultraman are really obsessive. And it was this like, book that was like 3 inches thick. And I had an entry in there. My name was in that book, and it was like encyclopedia style, and my name was in that book. And there's like a little paragraph about all the appearances I'd done, and who I was, and why you kept seeing, because like people who were like really big fans of Ultraman would notice, oh, that it's that same guy. He's in another show. So I guess I was in enough that I got noticed by the Ultraman fans, which is kind of. I'm really, I'm excited about that. I think that's
yeah.
That's kind of neat.
Well, that's your real claim to fame there.
Yeah, that's what I think.
And hey, tell us about the one where you played 2 roles in one movie very near each other.
Yeah, that was it was an episode of Ultraman Tiga, which is a TV series we did in 1996 and 97. And in the penultimate episode, the second to last episode, there is a monster is attacking the United States, and the United States Air Force sends some planes to try to destroy this monster. And they had me play a pilot in 2 scenes. And then I don't know who made the decision, but at some point they made the decision, because I was under the impression that I was the same pilot doing 2 scenes, one where I'm like firing at the monster, and one where and then there's a second one where the monster hits my plane with a like a laser beam, and I crash. So I did these 2 scenes, but then when they cut it together to make the show, I'm 2 different pilots.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
guess they figured nobody would notice.
That's great. I heard of them filming scenes like of a battle, and with there's some Westerners, and so at some point they have everybody freeze for a break, and they mark where everybody is, so they can go back and be in those places, and they would put different Westerners in the same spot. Where another one had been.
Yeah, because we all look alike. That's one of those funny things. People will say that about people who've never lived in Asia. Will it's racist to say, but people say, oh, everybody looks alike. Well, I remember when I lived in Japan, I didn't think Japanese people looked alike at all. And it was this funny thing to go to, of course everybody's got the same color hair and stuff like that, but I didn't think people looked alike at all.
Well, you get used to it. I mean, the people from one race generally have a harder time distinguishing characteristics of people from another race, especially if they're not used to it. And that it's like that argument has been used in court to say disqualify a witness's that they saw some crime.
Well,
so there's some truth to if you're not used to a particular group, they can all look the same at first, at least. And then after a while, see, you were there living amongst them. After a while, you started seeing all the differences. And then everybody's different. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what got you... let me ask you, did you do anything else when you were in Japan, like any martial art or any of the aesthetic practices, or anything more non-Zen that was different, you know?
Well, no. I mean, not really.
Uh-huh.
My interest in Japanese culture was mainly Zen and those monster movies. I was really interested in those. But I wasn't. It wasn't really that I was. I'm probably the only person who lived in Japan a long time. You know, who was a foreigner. Who I'm not that into Japanese food. People always assume I am. You lived in Japan 11 years. Here we're going to have sukiyaki or something. You know, I'm like, oh
Uh-huh.
no. When I was living in Japan, that was one thing I caught on to early on in Tokyo. Was there's a lot of Indian people who live in Tokyo, which means there's tons of good Indian restaurants all over Tokyo.
Right.
And I used to just love all the Indian restaurants there, which is a funny thing to get into when you're in Japan. But,
right. Right. There's an enormous amount of variety there.
Oh yeah.
You can. It's just incredible. It's such a fascinating place to live and walk. It's a great place to walk. There's just interesting stuff everywhere.
I love Tokyo.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't like Tokyo. That's a kind of a stereotype in Japan. People will be like, well, I like Japan, but I don't like Tokyo. Tokyo is big. It's like New York or Los Angeles. It's like the big city, and very international. And I liked Tokyo. I thought it was really,
yeah,
fascinating city.
Oh, it's endless. You could. Tokyo is just endless. It's not a high city. It's a wide city.
Yeah, that's true.
And
I never thought about it, but yeah,
I stayed I was in Suginami-ku, and I was in Tokyo, staying in a wooden home in a neighborhood with old wooden homes, and there was a Shingon temple nearby. I'd go over and sit while the monks were chanting, and oh God, it was cool. There was just and then if you want some real Zen, you can go down to Kamakura, which is really near, which is a wonderful town.
Yeah. There's all kinds of things like that in Tokyo. I lived in this area that was, I lived in a very traditional-looking Japanese house, the last place that I lived over there.
Mm-hmm.
And in this neighborhood that was looked like it hadn't changed since, pre-war days. It looked really old-fashioned, but I could ride my bike, and in 10 minutes I'd be in Shinjuku, which is, Shinjuku is like the bright lights and the
right,
the traffic, and so it really close to Shinjuku. There was this neighborhood that looked like it was frozen in time from the pre-war days.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of city it is.
Yeah. Let's see. There was something I was going to ask you. Well, anyway, all right. Let's move on. So, how many years were you there, and why did you leave?
Well, I was a total of 11 years in Japan. 1 year in a city called Takaoka, and then the rest in Tokyo. And then why I left it's kind of complicated, but let's see. The short version would be Tsuburaya Productions. They were having enormous internal problems with the company, but at the same time, they opened up a Los Angeles office, which I thought, well, this isn't a great idea because they're having enormous trouble within the company in Japan, and they're opening this office. But they wanted me to go out and be part of this Los Angeles office. And my mother was quite ill at the time, and I thought, well, this is a good opportunity for me to get. They lived in Texas, so at least I was in the same country as my parents. So I took them up on this offer to move to Los Angeles and be part of this Tsuburaya Productions office. But what happened is the company basically fell apart back in Tokyo while I was in Los Angeles, and I ended up in this kind of weird limbo where they didn't fire me or they didn't shut down the office, but they also didn't anything I presented to them as a potential project we might do. They they didn't even turn it down. They just never replied to me, and they never assigned anything from their end. So I ended up just getting paid to not do anything, and that's kind of what started, because Hard Core Zen had come out by then, and people were starting to invite me to lead sessions and things, and I started saying, well, I might as well. And I had one confidant in my office in Tokyo who I would tell her. I remember telling her once I was going off to do a 7-day session, and I was getting so few calls from the home office in Tokyo by this point that I knew it wouldn't matter. And I said, just in off chance that anybody tries to find me in the next week, I gave her like some excuse to make of where I was, and but she never even had to use it because nobody called during that week. So I started doing little tours. I'd go off and spend a week or two in traveling around and talking in places, and so that's where that started. And eventually the company did shut down the Los Angeles office. It's a long story about that. They actually wanted me to come back to Tokyo, and at that point I decided it didn't seem like a good idea to go back. It seemed like the wrong thing to do, although financially it would have been the right thing to do because they were offering me good money. But I decided to stay in America and try to make it in the Zen business.
Yeah.
What that was.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That was a good decision. Now, when you started getting invitations, where were you getting invitations from? Who did you do the session with?
There was a few places. Let me try to remember. I know at one point I went to Milwaukee Zen Center where Tonin O'Connor was running things. She was a student of a guy named Tozen.
Oh, I'm very close with Tozen. He lives in Santa Rosa. Yeah. I had a Zoom with him, and I keep up with him. He's in a retirement, Salvation Army retirement. He's a wonderful person. I love him.
Oh. So I did a retreat for her. I did the thing called the Great Sky Session, which is this. I think they only did it for 3 times, but the idea was to have a session without one single teacher. So they would invite like 5 teachers, and each teacher got his or her own day in which they were the leader of the session, which was kind of a neat concept. So I did that a couple of times.
And wait a minute, I remember one thing about that is you said you were the only teacher that signed up for Doksan with another teacher.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I just thought I want to see what Dokusan's like with somebody else. So I can't remember even now who I signed up for Dokusan with. But I signed up for Dokusan with one of the other teachers on that Great Sky Session, just to kind of get the experience of being on the other side of it. That was interesting. I think it might have been Dokai Georgeson's Dokusan he was a Katagiri Roshi student. I think I signed up for Dokusan with him. Because the other teachers there I knew pretty well, so I didn't want to sign up for Dokusan with them. I wanted to sign up for somebody I didn't know very well. And he'd been with Katagiri, who I was very interested in Katagiri Roshi's stuff. So
I remember you around Zen Center, and it's sort of interesting because you had your own credentials and everything, and then you went to Zen Center. Now, but both those things, going to Zen Center sort of like as a student, and then signing up for Doksan when you had transmission and could be a teacher, and those are signs of humility. That's
I don't know.
Really impressive.
You're not the first person who said that, but at the time I didn't feel particularly humble. It was just, it seemed like an interesting thing to do. And I wanted to, like for Tassajara, I wanted to experience Tassajara fully, and it just, seemed to me the only way to do that was to sign up as a, what do they call it? Not guest practice. It's the thing where you're just working there in the summer. What do they call it? There's a word for that.
Oh, it's a guest student or whatever. Anyway, but you were a student.
Yeah.
You were a student in the summer.
I signed up for a guest student.
And I love the summer at Tassajara. It's an hour of zazen in the morning, and a lot of work during the day, but a lot of time off. Man, you go walk
Yeah.
in the woods and stuff, and then zazen or lecture at night. I love that schedule.
It is really nice. Now you're reminding me of it, and I'm getting all nostalgic. But yeah, I forgot about it. Yeah,
Yeah,
and you're so isolated down there. So all the stuff, all the news. If there's big news, it eventually gets down there, but it takes a little while. There's no internet. There's no TV. So you kind of, in your own world
yeah.
and stuck in that valley. Because it's such a pain in the butt to get out of there. So nobody wants to leave unless there's something really pressing to do. I used to think of the outside as the surface world. It felt like, we were all stuck in a little submarine there. There's this surface world, above us. That's the way I kept conceiving of it.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is different. It really is remote. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the remotest places I've ever been. And you can see why, sometimes I think about how this practice works, and you can see why it's advantageous to have a place where people can't just wander in. Although, as you know, if you've been to Tassajara, and you have, people do wander into Tassajara, which always amazes me. Like, random people wander into it. I think, how did you even find this place?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it happens.
Yeah. I've had people come in and, ask if the road they want to continue the road. Which way should I go, right or left? I say,
No, this is the end.
Yeah, you're at the end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And people coming in from the woods, wandering in.
Yeah. Somebody stole my robes.
No.
I had them hanging up behind the dining room. My robes had been hanging up there because they wanted me to lead ceremonies, and I was working dining room crew. So the only way to, because of where I was staying, the best way was to, walk out, get out of the dining room, put on my robes, and go over to the zendo. So I had my robes hanging in this little hidden area behind, and somebody wandered through the place in the middle of the night, and among many other things he did, was stole my robes. But he dropped his driver's license, which is so
good Lord,
so random. Yeah, how did
that happen?
So they were able to. He'd done a bunch of other things other than stealing my robes. He'd ripped off a few things. So they got in contact with him and got him to bring back the stuff that he'd stolen from the center.
Wow,
it's funny.
That is interesting. I remember once a truckload of really disreputable people came in the 60s, maybe it was 70s, in it was like one of those big old UPS trucks that had been made into sort of, like a hippie home or something. But these were bad hippies. And anyway, they, people said, who are those people? What are they doing? And then we discovered, all this stuff is just as they're driving off. They'd robbed all the cars in the parking lot. Oh boy, that's smart. Saunter over to the phone, stop to talk to somebody if you want. Call the sheriff, and the sheriff was waiting for them when they got out.
Because it's gonna take them an hour to get out of there, no matter what they do. So you got plenty of time.
So when did you start getting into Europe?
Oh well, that was 2009. I got contacted by a guy in Finland. I think Hard Core Zen had come out in Finnish maybe in 2008 or 2007. So it had been around. The Finnish version had been around a little while. And this Finnish guy contacted me and asked me if I would come and do talks there. And he wasn't the first person in Europe who had asked me to do that, but he was the first person who had a plan. He had a plan of how to finance it. I'm not out there to make money, but the other people expected me to pay my own plane fare and rent hotels and stuff. And it's like, well, there's no way I can afford to do these talks because, I'm just going to go broke. And so I always said no. But this guy actually had a plan where we could cover the plane fare and the housing and meals and stuff like that for me to do this tour of Finland. And I said, okay, well, if you can cover it, then I'll do it. And I also got in contact with some of those other people that I mentioned who'd asked me to come to Europe. And I said, well, I've got plane tickets to Finland. So, a plane ticket from Finland to Germany is, a lot cheaper than one from the USA to Germany. So, so I arranged a little European tour. I think I went to England, Germany, and Finland that time.
Mm-hmm.
And just people heard about it, and it kind of turned into this thing that I've done every year since then. Well, one year, I'll let you guess which year that was. I had to give it a miss, but last year in September I was back again, and this year I'm going in September. So it's been every year since 2009 that I've done this.
Well, wait a minute.
European tour.
What year did you give it a miss?
Oh, that was 2020. I mean,
I assumed that, but that's so near, so recent. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, there were too many travel restrictions, and I couldn't get over to the places that had invited me for 2020. I almost went in 2020, but yeah, we couldn't make it work.
Did you go in 2021?
Yeah, I did go in 2021. Yeah.
Oh, pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, it was it was fairly easy to do it in 2021, but yeah. There were some things still going on at the time. It was in September, so so I've done it every year, and I'm going back again this year later in the year, and
wow,
been good.
Wow. I remember you were telling me when we talked earlier. You reminded me of that you made a podcast, I guess it is, with me in Akron. You're from Akron, right? Mm-hmm. And
yeah, originally near there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a number of relatives in Akron. Wonderful people, I love them. I picked you up in my aunt's Lexus, and
yeah, very cool.
You showed me Kent State, and that was very touching. Where the 4 students were killed, and the statue that had the some sort of steel plate that had armor-piercing bullet holes through it. Good Lord.
It's a very strange abstract statue with giant metal plates as part of it, but it's been up there since before 1970, and it's got a bullet hole. And yeah, you had said something that I'd walked by that statue 100 times. I never thought about it. It's like, what kind of bullet can pierce that thick metal? Because, there's a hole right through it. So they were using some serious ammo. It was not buckshot or anything.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, good Lord. That to me, seeing that was as, what would you say? It compounded how impressive the tour and the memory of it was. And I remember the pictures. I can see it right now. The famous picture. Very sad.
Yeah. That instant. There's one Super 8 film of the shootings actually happening, and it was shot from the same dorm where I lived during my freshman year. I don't know if it was the same room, but it could have been the same room. It looked like exactly the angle I got when I looked out my window. So it was really eerie to see that.
Yeah. Ooh, gosh. And what Kent State was what year?
1970. That's when they had the shootings. Yeah.
Oh, 70. And you went there when?
I guess I must have enrolled in 82. So, it was long over by then. People used to still had this image of Kent State as being this rowdy, radical, lefty school, but really it wasn't. It was like just like any Midwestern college, university. One of the easiest universities to get into, for one thing. I mean, my SAT scores were not that impressive, but I got in.
Yeah.
So yeah, and there was no real. There was a punk rock scene there, but there was no sort of real sense of it being a radical, crazy school.
Oh, your music. Are you doing any music now?
Well, yeah, a little bit. I'm not that active, but Zero Defects was the punk rock band that I was in.
Say the name again.
Started. Zero Defects. Zero Defects is like a military and industrial term for something that doesn't have any defects, so that's why the band is called that. And we reformed in 2005 to do this one-off reunion gig, and we've just been playing about a handful of times every year ever since, the reformed version of Zero Defects. And it looks like we're going to play again in May, although we're still working on, the exact dates, because everybody else in the band lives in Ohio and I live in Los Angeles. So, it means I have to go out there to do the gig if we want to play. And they're loyal enough that they don't hire somebody else. So, yeah, I'm planning to go back there sometime in the spring and do a show with them. Mm-hmm. So it's still going on. We've been releasing stuff on the internet. We even just did a release. I think it was last year of like a 5-song thing. There was no physical object, but we put it out. It's on Spotify and all those things.
That's what's done now. Well, yeah, and how does one find it? Just write Zero Defects?
If you look at Zero Defects, if you check out Zero Defects on Spotify, we spell DEFEX, but if you spell it the other way, I'm sure it'll come up too.
Oh, DEFEX. Well, you'd be on YouTube too.
Yeah, that's the other thing. That's the thing that's actually more fun. We've put together a bunch of YouTube videos that it's become kind of almost more what we do than playing shows is making these YouTube videos. So that's one of the things we'll do when we get together is we plan out a new video and we do it with some, we always try to put in some funny special effects and make them, it's not just a shot of the band playing in a room or something. We'll do a real video. And there's, I don't know how many, there's like a dozen of those that we've put up over the years. One of them got a lot of views. I was surprised. It's called Armageddon. And it got, like 100,000 views. And I was like, wow, I didn't know. We were never that popular when we were active, when we were more active. But our video got 100,000 views. So that was nice.
Wow, pretty cool. You and you put out stuff earlier. I can't remember the name. I see the letter D, and it means like destruction. No, it's not destruction. It's
dementia.
Dementia.
Dementia 13 is the name of an old movie, an old horror movie, and I had I made 5 albums under the name Dementia 13, which was 3 of those 5 albums, I'm the only person on them, overdubbing and making all the instruments myself. And on 2 of the albums, there's an actual band. But they're made to sound as if
that's available too.
Yeah, and those are on Spotify too. But even the stuff I did myself is made to sound as if a band is playing it. So it's it was a fake band.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah, I've done that.
We did play live. There was a Dementia 13 live act for a while too.
Wow. Well, a novelist, musician, Zen writer, speaker, horror movie aficionado. Pretty good.
No, it's something. It keeps me off the streets,
Yeah. Well, that's great, man. And you're just going to keep doing it, huh?
Yeah. I don't see any reason to stop. I'll just keep going. It's fun. The YouTube channel is interesting because I didn't really expect it to be. It's not a big YouTube channel as YouTube channels go, but it's big enough that I've got this audience out there,
Yeah.
and I really have fun putting things together for it. So I think that comes through. Uh,
Wow. Okay.
I really like doing that.
Yeah. Well, look, when you get some time, come on over to Indonesia and say hello.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I think I mentioned this to you before privately, but there was some guy who was inviting me to come to Thailand to do a retreat, and then of course all the lockdowns and things happened, and
oh yeah.
that fell through. But I expect that now he'll want to start up again because he's very enthusiastic on the idea. So maybe I'll be over there.
Yeah.
In the area, in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of retreats done here too. Not in the last couple of years, but I've done two different types of retreats. Vipassana and a sort of modified Bali healer Vipassana.
Oh,
Guru here I'm sort of close with. Nice, very nice man.
okay.
And anyway, you might be able to end up doing something here too. I don't see why not.
Yeah,
Um,
it'd be interesting.
yeah. Well, listen, I appreciate your doing this, joining me for this, especially since it's the second time.
Yeah.
But heck, I like talking to you, so to me, it was like the first time.
That's good, and I think actually it was better this time.
Yeah, might be a little tighter. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, indeed. So, well, Brad, until we meet again, thank
Well,
you.
thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, take care.
All right.
All right.
We'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So thank you very much, Brad Warner. That was good. Thank you very much for doing that. And I really enjoyed talking to you. I wanted to say one thing because we talked about Kent State. And we all know what a tragedy it was that 4 students died at Kent State. 4 white students died at Kent State. But now listen to this. It took me just a few seconds on Google to find this. And I'm going to read you from the Wikipedia page on the Jackson State killings. The Jackson State killings occurred on Friday, May 15th, 1970, at Jackson State College, now Jackson State University, in Jackson, Mississippi. On May 14th, 1970, city and state police confronted a group of students in their dorm room. Shortly after midnight, the police opened fire, killing 2 students and injuring 12. This event happened 11 days after the Kent State shootings, in which National Guardsmen killed 4 students at Kent State University in Ohio during a protest against the Vietnam War. This event had first captured national attention. Anyway, you can go, wow. It says on the evening of, I was going to say you can go to Wikipedia and read more, but I'm just going to read a little bit more. It says on the evening of Thursday, May 14th, a group of around 100 black students had gathered on Lynch Street, named after the Black Reconstruction era U.S. Representative John R. Lynch, which bisected the campus. Look, when I see that name Lynch Street, let me tell you, boy, that means something to me because I spent some time there in 1964 with before the Freedom Summer. I was there. And Lynch Street was where our headquarters were. And I got arrested there. I went to jail and stuff. And various things happened. And I wrote all about it. You can find it on Cuke.com under Freedom Songs, My Journey Through 1964. Anyway, so these Jackson State killings happened, and we forget about that. It just didn't get the attention that the Kent State killings did. Got some. Okay, I just wanted to mention that. This has been a Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC Puba of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from sleepy Sonora with Doggett Bandita, Feline Cuchita, and dear lovely Katrinka. And we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.